Well, there's some of my old summer buddies, the Lagoon Nebula and the Trifid Nebula in Sagittarius. And they're like old friends to me, just like you are now great friends. As I'm Mark Marquette, and we're glad that you're with us to stay star curious today as we do our frequent segment on backyard astronomy, what you can see from your backyard. And I'm going to be showing you here in a minute one of the best optical tools you can use is those binoculars that many of you have for sporting events or birding or maybe out on the lake. So, gonna grab them and get outside tonight, and I'm going to tell you some wonders that you can see with binoculars that are pretty cool, as well as a new telescope that is showing this view of the Lagoon Nebula over here and the Trifid Nebula over here, like we've never seen them in unprecedented detail. These two objects are actually visible with the naked eye, just barely, in the Milky Way that is steaming off of the Teapot constellation called Sagittarius. And we're going to learn a couple other constellations as we go through the summer here, and hope that you get out in your backyard and do a little stargazing. So, wanted to say hi to Marty Winkle, my stargazing buddy there. Marty, how you doing today? The moon is 28 days old. So is that a good or bad day for stargazing?
Think that's as good as it gets, Mark.
That's a great day to go stargazing because the moon is almost full, almost at new phase. It will be tomorrow. And we'll show you a chart to explain that here in just a second. Also got a nice star chart that we want you to download for free on skymaps.com. I virtually don't do anything for our museum yet, but it's one of the handier websites to download. Or maybe you've got an app on your phone that you have downloaded to see the sky. And those are always cool because they show you the constellation figures around, stuff like that. If you haven't, we'll mention how you can do that here today on today's broadcast. But as always, we're a nonprofit that needs to keep the doors open, and the government grants and local grants certainly are hard to get with so many nonprofits on the landscape wanting help. And we just remind you that we have Winston Scott saying thank you for your donation on Facebook, our YouTube channel. All right, they take a healthy chunk out of it of YouTube, but after all, that's one of the prime sources of their income. However, we're grateful for everything there at different levels. And then we have a button that's on our website that you can donate. And when you hit that donation button, you might want to earmark the money for our renovation of our gift shop. Our American Space Museum gift shop is going to be rebranded as a space store. And we will be having artifacts that we sell on eBay and on the auctions and extra things that we have that would never display or have multiples of in our space store. And Mitch Rothman right there. Thank you, Mitch. Created a fundraising for us on his own Facebook page called NASA Manned Space. He's always welcoming new members. Mitch has become a financial supporter of our museum, and his wife Paula. Thank you so much for the friends that you're bringing to us. Mitch also one of the behind the scenes architect of the success of our Shuttle Fest 4, and we're rolling out Shuttle Fest 5. Save the date. It'll be June 19th, 20th, and 21st. The 19th will be here at the museum, and the other dates at the Cocoa Beach Hilton. So, Mitch, thank you and Paula for supporting us, and just not only financially, but also by raising money for our gift shop, as well as all the in-kind good things that they do, as they are quite active in the scene of space events, and attend a lot of the suit and tie events at the Cosmosphere and other places that are raising money for their endeavors. So thank you, Mitch, a lot. And you go to our website, americanspacemuseum.org. At the top is a big yellow button up there. You click that to donate. You can drop down a menu and say Space Store Renovation there, and we'll make sure that money goes for that. Yes, Marty.
I have a question from RG Jubilee. Is the space, I think it meant store, is the space store going to be in the museum or is it online only?
Good question. The space store we're creating is on the museum, and many of those items will be offered online. Because I administrate it and am very busy, our eBay, we have an eBay store, but we don't have anything up there right now. Stuff cycled out, and we're getting another team together to enhance our eBay store. So it comes and goes, but we will try to be selling on our website, our eBay store, and here at the American Space Museum. Some of those items might be here, but if you're looking for something specific, let me know, because we know people collect launch passes. Just regular launch pass. They try to get all 135 of them from the shuttle launches. We have a lot of those laying around, and could find somebody to go through them to find you those 2 or 3 to complete your collection. So bear with us as we get all of this up and running, and it takes a lot of people and a lot of organization to do it, but that's what I'm all about as the director of the American Space Museum. And our executive director of our foundation, Gabriel Rothblatt, is also working on membership levels and so forth for our museum. So you might want to support us by buying a $100 membership. Maybe your family would never come here, but you'll get the certificate and stuff like that to be part of our family. And then a couple of times a year, we're going to have things just for members only. Like, dinners with VIPs and things like that, you can be invited to. So thank you for your questions. I'll take some on astronomy only, or some questions. We can't cover what's the best telescope to buy or binoculars, obviously. We've done special shows on that, but Marty, you see something there that pertains to what we're talking about today. This is a STEAM education program. Thank you, Mitch, as I get rid of you there, buddy. Science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. All right. And where would art be without the great artist Chris Calley creating what happened at July 16, 1969, the only artist allowed to sketch the astronauts of Apollo 11 suiting up. And his son, Chris, is a great supporter of our museum. So STEAM, you see it's STEM in a lot of places, but the A could be for astronomy, astronautics, astrobiology, aeronautics, all kinds of stuff. But you wouldn't have a shuttle concept without the art of it. So STEAM is what we call it. We try to embrace our backyard stargazing a couple times a month, and usually on Mondays. So something I can do very easily, because though Marty is still waiting on my slides at the last minute, because I'm always trying to enhancing it, but it's something you should know a little bit about. Looking up in the night sky, and I believe something's looking back at us, because in your night sky we have found over 5,000 planets orbiting approximately 2,000 different stars, and those are just the nearby local stars in our galaxy, because of the sophisticated astronomical instruments on Earth and orbiting Earth do this in a subtle way. We don't see these exoplanets. They're inferred by how the planet wobbles, by the gravity they pull on it. Some pass in front of their parent star, and the brightness changes, and we can figure out all kinds of things. It's fascinating what we know about the skies, and have learned, particularly in the last 50 years, all thanks to the advanced technology of digital and other things. You're going to see a result of that's of a new telescope that's been unveiled in Sierra Tololo, all right, Chile. One of its new photos of this region right here. We're seeing that this is a naked eye and easily seen with binoculars. The Lagoon Nebula, because it looked like a lagoon. The Trifid Nebula, because it's got 3 parts, are all in Sagittarius the Archer, but it really looks like a teapot, and I'm going to show you how and where. All right, let's go forward here with Marty. Yep, the moon is 28 days old. All right, so as you see on the far left, it's going to be a thin crescent, very hard to see in the morning sky tomorrow. As Tuesday, it's going to be on the 25th is when it'll be completely new phase, which means it's there. It's right there by the sun in the sky, but it's below or above the sun. In the sun's glare, you can't see it. There's nothing reflecting on it. If we could see it, it would be passing in front of the sun, and we'd have a solar eclipse that we all enjoyed in April 2024. So good one, Marty. I have actually taught you how to speak like an astronomer. That's amazing. 14 days old, the moon is full. 7 days old is first quarter. 7 days after full phase, it's last quarter. 21 days old. As the moon advances and goes from full to the other phases in the morning sky, and so there's no moonshine in the evening sky that would prohibit you from seeing the lagoon and the Trifid Nebula. Oh, going backwards, Peach Fuzz. There we go. All right, this is I forgot that this actually looked like this. This is one side of a binocular. All right. The other side, you've got an objective lens on it, just like a telescope, made of nice glass. And on the back, you've got a eyepiece. Now, on a pair of binoculars, the eyepiece is fixed. And these are 12 by 45s. This is 12 millimeters across. 45 millimeters across with 12 power on them. All right. This is usually 8 power is what you can hand hold. And I advise that you get binoculars before a telescope, because although I'm going to show you a star map here in a minute, binoculars are the way to easily familiarize yourself with the stars, with a star map by your side. Here's my star dial, okay, signed by Jerry Carr up there in the corner. This was Jerry Carr's star map as a Boy Scout. And on such a map, you put the date, okay, with the time on it here. And as I get my date is June, the end of June, and my time it's not going to get dark till really good and dark till 10 o'clock. So I put June 23rd there at 10 o'clock, and I'm going to get these stars are in the sky. And they're connected together in a dot to dot to help you pull the concept of the constellations together. Of course, you're not going to see the dot to dots in the sky. You use a red flashlight, which I left over there, so your eyes stay dark adapted. What's dark adapted? Dark adapted is when you go to bed at night, you flip the lights out. You don't see anything. 5 minutes later, as you're yawning and saying, am I ever going to get to sleep? You see everything in the room, because your eyes have dilated. Your pupils, as humans, adjust to intense light on the beach. Your pupils are very very tiny to stop light from going in there. When you're out at night or in a darkened room, they open up so you can see things better. That's a principle to enjoy when you're stargazing. You got to give yourself 10, 15 minutes in whatever light you're in your backyard. Maybe shield yourself from the neighbor's light that he won't turn off by finding a tree or something in the backyard that blocks it from you. Get comfortable, have a star map, maybe a beverage and your favorite music in your earbuds, and just roam the night sky. I guarantee you the peace of mind you'll get hopefully will become addictive like me. And that's one of my happy places, just going out in the backyard and looking at the stars. Now, and you hear things you don't hear inside. The dogs barking, birds fluttering, maybe a bat flies overhead. You'll probably see satellites going overhead. Airplanes for sure if you're near an airport, but satellites are going to be all over the place. And I'll emphasize that here in just a minute. But there's different ways to hold your binoculars, okay? And if you don't have a tripod stand like this, I say you put your elbows in, hold it like this. You don't want your elbows waving around like this, because then it's waving around. Boy, Marty, you got a 5 o'clock shadow over there. So you have your eyes tucked in here, your arms tucked in there against your chest, and that makes a little tripod to hold things steadier, and then just kind of lightly hold it in your hands. Don't grab it, but just keep it in there. Or you can buy this device that I didn't bring in. Do I have it in my bag? Nope, I don't. Here's my astronomy bag. I have it on my tripods where I have it. Every pair of binoculars in the middle has a little button there that says the name brand usually, and sometimes you could screw it off on purpose. It's threaded. Other times you just pop it off with a butter knife or your fingers, and if you lose it, no big deal. But you see, there's a thread mount there that fits this device over here. You thread that in there. The bottom part goes on a tripod. Bingo. Now you're hands-free and can look at things in the universe in a better way. There's also what they call, well, let me put big, yeah, there's the, and these are $10 on Amazon, okay? Binocular mount for tripod, something like that. Your tripod quick release is at the bottom. Or you can also buy a parallelogram. Of course, anything, it's like fishing in astronomy. You could fish with a cane pole, a can of worms, a hook, and a piece of string, right? And I've held a $10,000 rod and reel in my hand. It's all what you do with it. No matter what you have, if you ain't using it, it's what good is it except for people to look at? So here's an elaborate device where you put it's a parallelogram. You put the tripod up there in the upper right-hand corner, if I can make it, and that balances with a counterweight. And that way, when I pull it up to look at something, and I'm looking at M13, Marty comes up to me, and he's an inch or two shorter than me. I can pull it down. He can pull that down, and it's going to stay right in the same field of view. He doesn't have to reposition it in there. It's a good way for groups to see the wonders of the sky with binoculars. Well, here's a nice system. Again, sit in an easy lounge chair. I scoot right behind that and put my eyes behind there. And the only thing that's moving is the Earth turning that makes the stars move a little bit. So about every 3 or 4 minutes, you'll have to adjust. If you were looking at M13, the great globular cluster in Hercules that we're going to look at, you just have to move it back a little bit. Then you can take your hands off, make a sketch, or just think about it. Think about that ball of stars we're going to see here in a minute. And there's a more elaborate situation that, like I said, you can go from a cane pole to a very high-tech rod and reel. Here's somebody that not only has binoculars mounted on like a dentist chair or a lounge chair, but they're mini telescopes that he's got. Binocular 3-inch short tube refractors that this gentleman's got there. And also, I think the whole thing moves to match the motion of the Earth, therefore the stars. So you can go crazy on this stuff, but I just want you to get out in your backyard, sit in your lounge chair, and just scan around with a good star map. And then even you can look stuff up in the red light on your phone and see things there. So a little planning ahead of time before you go out, looking at a star map. Not just this chart, but what they look like online or on a star map there, or something you got from the library. Your library is your friend, your free friend in astronomy, where you can find all kinds of books, even if they're written in the 50s, and they're probably not, because they would purge those frequently, and the librarians would call me and say, we're just getting rid of a lot of astronomy books, Mark. And I love the old ones because the charts are beautiful. The artwork can be very beautiful in them, but it stays the same. The stars have not moved in the last 3,000 years, all right, except the North Star does move around every 26,000 years. The Polaris, or the wobble of our Earth's axis, points to a different star. Those stars haven't changed. So stars are moving so fast, yet they're so far away, you'll never see a star different in your night sky in your lifetime. It'd take 1,000 years for someone to notice that. There is a term that has been coined called noctalgia. It literally means in Latin sky grief. What am I talking about? Well, this chart here on the bottom shows you what I'm talking about. You can't see any stars in a big city. And astronomers have given a Bortle number for the lower the number, the darker the sky is. A guy named Bortle gave an arbitrary scale of it there. So your Bortle 7 and 6 are in the city, all right. Bortle 8 and 9 is Manhattan or downtown Orlando. You can still see the moon and planets and a few bright stars, but in the 7 area there maybe, and that's like Orlando. The further you get away from the big cities, suburbs is basically a Bortle 5. And to see the Milky Way, you're barely going to see it. You got to get a little bit away from the suburbs, like I live in Port St. John, and that's about the way it looks in Marty's backyard, where the right here, these two there, that one and that one particularly is about what it looks like, or the 5, where you just barely see it. Now you start getting out in the rural areas and so forth, and then out in the New Mexico desert in the middle of nowhere. How about western Colorado, where Mitch Rothman and his wife Paula are, and Joe Tanner, the astronauts out in West Colorado. When I visit you guys, I'm bringing a telescope so I can see the Milky Way or the winter sky a lot deeper. So noctalgia, sky grief, I suffer from it. Here's the place I told you that I'm going to have to call up and say, boy, I sure do a lot of promoting for you all. Maybe you can help us out with some star maps or something. This is a downloadable star map, free, at skymaps.com. They have a lot of tips. This is a hot telescope right there, about $400, and it doesn't have an eyepiece. It sends a signal Bluetooth to your smart tablet, okay? And it's taken the astronomy by storm. It's like one binocular, about a 30 millimeter binocular, but it keeps taking pictures and layering them. And I'm going to take a picture of the one day and show you a friend of mine has, several friends of mine have one. I'll show you pictures through this telescope that you don't have to know anything about astronomy. It'll even automatically show you things in the sky. But it takes a 30-second picture and then another 30-second, and then another 30, and layers them until you start seeing the Great Nebula of Orion or the M6 and M7, the Lagoon and Trifid nebulas. Here's the star map I'm talking about. The blue is the Milky Way. Okay, so the Milky Way's up nice and high above the horizon at about 10 o'clock at night in June. This is also early, this is June at about 11 p.m. All right, in early June. In late June, it's about 10 o'clock. Or in July, this is what the sky will look like in July, but the Milky Way will keep going to the west and be directly overhead in August, okay, at 10 o'clock. In the middle, you've got a constant, I wish I could have my red pointer with me here, but I'm going to do it this way and say in the middle, you've got a little tiny square they call the keystone that's called Hercules. At the top is Orion, is the Big Dipper, okay? The Big Dipper is actually Ursa Major. Yeah, there you go, Marty. Go right up in the middle, right in there, a little higher, right there. That's Hercules, the strong man, the keystone. And right where he's pointing is Messier 13. Charles Messier in the 1800s, an astronomer, kept looking for comets. The fuzzy comet would move, and he'd get it named after him. Ones that didn't move didn't. Keep that where it's at, Marty, and I'm going to ask you to go from there to 2 o'clock. Keep right there. That's the handle of the Big Dipper. Up a little bit higher there. That's the Big Dipper bowl to the left of the arrow, and the pointer stars are standing on end, so it's directly overhead and looking to the north, all right? Beautiful. You can see the Big Dipper stars, and it points to Polaris, the North Star. And they have a line, Marty, going to the left. They would be at 12 o'clock. That's Polaris, the North Star, right there. In the Little Dipper. See the Little Dipper coming down from that? All right? So get your star map, and this is how to read things. And then you look up and you go, oh, I see that. Okay, hopefully. Not everyone will see that. And That's okay. But they're like a little dot to dot up there, the brightest stars. Now, from your backyard, you're going to see about third magnitude. And that's the scale over here on the right. It's talking about the bigger the star, the brighter it is. And you're only going to see about 3 levels of that because the fainter ones just aren't there because of your street lights, shopping center nearby, whatever. But there's an app on your phone, and this app will also let you predict when the International Space Station's coming over or Starlink satellites. Okay, this is Heavens Above. That's a star. That's a website, and I think they also have an app. I have an app on my phone called ISS Detector. There's one that NASA wants you to have called Spot the Station. All right. And it tells you where the International Space Station is at every given time. And right now on my app, it's over China. Okay. And I'm going to see if you can see this app here. Why don't you move in on this, Marty, if you wouldn't, sir? This app on Android is called ISS Detector. Where you go, Sky. And I'm going to set it right there. I'm going to set it right there. There. All right. So perfect. This tells me sunrise was at 6:22 a.m. Got me a little leather case there. Holds business cards and everything. And my beautiful daughter, Jessie. And here is Jupiter at night when it's rising. All right. Let me go back. It tells me the moon is is going to be setting. Mars rises at 1:18 p.m. in the afternoon and sets at 12:01 a.m. All right, so you can't see it. It's in the daylight time. Mercury, Venus, there's the tomorrow. But I go, when's the next ISS? There's Venus sunrise, and it has a eyeball there on Venus because it rises at 3:46 a.m. ahead of the sun. So Marty sees it when he's out going to work out. That bright star in the east is Venus. Starlink satellites are going overhead at 3:39. Uranus rises, the moon rises, so forth and so on. We don't have a pass to the International Space Station for a while, but the Starlink satellites, when they're in the twilight, and it's yellow so it won't show that, are right there. 9:22 p.m., you might see those come overhead, and that's for Wednesday. So, all kinds of information. Excuse me.
Okay, when Mark
Yeah, keep me off there. Well,
it may take him several times. I think his record's about 15.
there. My sneezing fit's over. Whew. I sneeze in like multiples of 3. And everybody around that knows me. So this is ISS Detector. Shows me up here where it is over the Earth right now. And then there's other ways to show you. You push another button and it shows you where to look. And the Starlink satellites are going over in 11 hours, 29 minutes. And it's going to last for 19 minutes for them to go across the sky. And there's a quick star map there. So you can check out the constellations that it goes through. Very cool app, and a lot of you have things like that. So check that out. No reason not to be high tech and be stargazing in today's world there. So that's a little bit about the social apps that you can get on there. Just go to your app store, put in Sky Map or International Space Station, and the ones that want a couple dollars, they're worth it. They'll tell you like when the things that might not be in the database upgraded, like if they would ever orbit Starship, okay, Elon Musk Starship, when it starts orbiting, that's what extra money you would get, was it would make sure to let you know when it's passing over where it is in the world. So, all right. Well, let's do some serious stargazing here. Ursa Major, the Big Bear, Ursa Major is just a part of the Big Bear. And I know Marty will never see a bear up in the sky like this, but this is sort of the idea that whoever named this the bear, it's been called a bear universally in history, and most of these constellations were created by the stargazers of antiquity, meaning 3,000 years ago or more. Egyptians were very prominent of that in the cradle of civilization. Chinese also have their own names and patterns of things that this looked like to them. But Native Americans got onto this, and then you see the Big Dipper is the hindquarters of the bear. And there's never been a bear found on Earth that has a long tail. They all have a stubby little short tail. And that's part of the mythology of Zeus getting angry at one of the Pleiades and caught one of the Pleiades star women cheating on him, threw them up there, and then jerked I think Zeus turned into a bear to seduce one of them or something. So he was mad and threw him up in the sky without a tail. Jerked the tail off of him, maybe. But true, there's not even a skeleton of a bear with a long tail that we depict as the handle of the Big Dipper. And these stars conveniently give us distances. If I was to tell Marty that the moon tonight in the morning is going to be 10 degrees away from Venus, you would be able to take your hand, your hand fist is about 10 degrees, okay? Your Scout's Honor is about 5 degrees. I didn't put that slide in here. 5 degrees is between the two stars that point to Polaris. So you quickly learn degrees in the sky. 0 at the horizon, 90 degrees overhead. So if I say the ISS is passing 50 degrees overhead, is as high as it's going to get, that's a little over halfway between the horizon and directly overhead. Good things to know. Beautiful photograph taken of the Big Dipper, the stars. You photographers out there, they put a little soft filter on about a 2-minute exposure, and that gives you this little fuzziness there. But a good test of eyesight is the middle stars, Alcor and Mizar. It's actually two stars, and the stars orbit each other. They don't orbit each other. They're in a line of sight, we think. We used to think they did orbit each other, but over 100 years they haven't moved. They actually look like this. And the hex star X is from the artifact of the telescope. All right, that's the secondary mirror in there. But they've all got names. Deneb and Merrick point to the polar star. Phecda and Magri's are the other stars of the Big Dipper. You may or may not see Magri's. That is a 3rd magnitude, almost 4th magnitude stars. But the others are all 2nd magnitude, easy to see. The lower the number, the brighter it is. M51, M101, M108, and M97 are galaxies. M97 is actually the Owl Nebula, a blown up star that we see the gases around it. These are the treasures that we look at in our backyards. And I've talked about them on other Stay Curious shows about the Big Dipper. So I want to talk about some other things on this show. There, which is overhead, Hercules that Marty showed out. The keystone is the square of Hercules, all right? And M13 is a globular cluster. Globular, yep, like a glob of stars. 100,000 star. You're going to see them here in just a second, like a honeycomb. And it was the first deep sky object that I found in my own telescope when I was about 8 years old, way back in the last century. Now, Hercules is between two really bright stars. Vega is just rising in the east. It will be the east of Hercules, and to the west of it will be Arcturus. All right? And Arcturus is in Boötes, the herdsman. To the right, upper right, is Ursa Major, the big bear. So this is the bear herder that they call. We like to call it an ice cream cone or a kite when you do the dots. And you'll be challenged to see all of those stars of the cone are in your backyard. The one on the left side you might not. And the one star in the lower left here in Hercules might be hard to see in your backyard. But let your eyes adapt a little bit, get the binoculars out, go between these two stars over here, and you'll see Hercules is globular cluster, one of the more famous clusters. But before we leave that, I want you to notice in the middle is a U shape of stars. Now, of course, that's the dot that we're connecting for you. That is Corona Borealis, okay? And it is the crown, all right? The crown of a queen put in the sky, an Egyptian queen. Borealis means uh, uh, Aurora Borealis, the northern cross, okay? The northern crown is what that is, the northern crown. If it was Corona Australis, it'd be the southern crown. There is a star right there off my shoulder here called T Tauri. It's a star that we know a lot about stars because astronomers are just eat up with all the data for now a good 50 years of awesome data. They know this star's on the verge of blowing up. One star is sucking the energy off the other star, and there's like a big bridge of matter going between the two. And we know pretty soon that's going to blow up, but it's going to usually brighten up on a level of about every, I think, 3 years it brightens and dims. It's been supposed to be brightening, and it hasn't, so we've been keeping our eye on it because one night I'll go out there and it'll be brighter than Gamma over there, or Nusaka, names that were given to these stars. So keep looking for that. Well, there is a a card that was quite popular of Hercules. You have Lyra the harp to the east of it, and there's the crown, Corona Borealis to the left of it. And he's always shown with a club in his hand, and his gut is the middle stars there, the keystone. We call that the keystone, all right? See his arms coming off of there and his legs on the bottom, okay? And you've got M13. You've got M92 is another globular cluster that you can see with your binoculars. You can see over 105 objects that Charles Messier, French astronomer, cataloged when he was looking for comets in a telescope about an 8-inch telescope, really. Many amateur astronomers own bigger. But they looked like fuzzy objects and had elongation to them or whatever, and he didn't know what they were, but he was tired of they never moved, so they weren't a comet, so he wrote them in a catalog, not knowing what they were until photography revealed their true nature. But you see the Greek alphabet there, Marty. The stars just don't have names given to them by the Egyptian and Asian astronomers of Iran and Iraq, the cradle of civilization, but they were given Greek alphabet numbers according to how bright they are. So alpha is the brightest star, beta is the next, and so forth and so forth. However, there's no alpha star in this. All right. And when you go through 26 stars, they start A, B, B, C, C. I think this reminds me of a cartoon character. SpongeBob. All right. Anybody disagree with me that looks like SpongeBob having a good old time in Bikini Bottom? Yeah, I know a lot about SpongeBob. Thank you, my daughter Jessie. All right. So there's this pineapple under the sea there. But, and maybe to get young people to look at it, there are attempts to rebrand some of the constellations and maybe just call this SpongeBob, and aka Hercules, all right? And a very famous person, H.A. Rey. H.A. Rey is known for doing Curious George comic books. Not comic books, but illustrated books of a character named Curious George, a yellow monkey. R.A. Rey, H.A. Rey, did a book about the constellations and kind of reconfigured what they look like. If he was around now, he'd definitely want this to be called SpongeBob. Well, again, to get it set up, Arcturus, Lyra the harp over here. That's where you get the harp on this, in this. And these cards were very popular in the 1800s as a way to depict constellations. They're actually 3x5 foul cards that you could punch holes out of them and look at the light, from a candle to figure things out. You got Corona Borealis. You're looking for that star about right over here. Yeah, about right in there's where that one could blow up any day. And there is the great globular cluster of Hercules, seen between two stars, and one's kind of reddish and the other's kind of whitish. And when you're looking through your binoculars, okay, at Hercules, and you're looking on those between those two stars, Marty, you go up to the top star and come down just a little bit, and then you're going to see the globular cluster with those two stars bordering it. It's a beautiful thing. I didn't put a Hubble telescope or more powerful telescope on image on this, but it is just like stars everywhere. All right. And if we were in a planet orbiting this star, you would see the stars a lot closer filling the night. We've not found any planets around any of these stars. It was one of the first places we looked. These are very unusual. There's over 100 of them that orbit our Milky Way galaxy like electrons around a nucleus. And we believe they may be older than our galaxy, like 10 billion years old. Well, have you heard about the Starlink satellites? Of course you have. We just had a couple launched, another 35 launched in the sky this morning, which I didn't get up for either launch this morning, Marty. But you lay under your abode with your binoculars and just look at something, hopefully on a tripod, you'll see things pass in front of it once in a while. And this is about a binocular view of how you would see through my binoculars. That would be, and the two stars that will tell you are right here. Yeah, right. I got to get used to how to do this. Right there and there are those two stars that show you. That's definitely M13, the globular cluster. But this is a time exposure of about 20 minutes, maybe, where an amateur astronomer in his backyard had his pictures ruined by satellites, okay? Some of these are Starlink satellites. Most of the others are probably that bright one's a Starlink. And the other one, you might get a train of Starlinks going through. Meaning they're in the same orbit, that for a reason, so you can continuously pick up a cell tower in the sky. That's what Starlinks are. Think of driving down the interstate and you're picking up cell tower after cell tower. There's no interruption anymore because it's so permeated with data, with things emitting data. This is what the Starlinks are. And they get in our way in the sky. And they also emit some energy that X-ray and infrared astronomers don't like. And there's an algorithm in the computer world that you put in there and it would eliminate all of these pictures, these streaks. And then you'd have your pretty picture, but you're going to lose the data from anything that was over this bright one, for example. So just to let you know, you're always going to see satellites. And the ones, Marty, going north and south, those are spy satellites because they are going north and south every 90 minutes and they let the Earth turn beneath them. So they see a different part of the sky all the time. One's going around the equator and close to the equator stay over that basic area all the time, like cell towers. So finding Hercules should be easy. Have fun and just revel in those things going on up there. Now, here we go into our backyard again. Remember Corona Borealis there? And the Milky Way. As we're going to finally get out to see the Milky Way. And this is midsummer, 10 o'clock at night. But this is from White Top Mountain in Damascus, Virginia. And that is Johnson City, Tennessee. Lights in the background there, which I-26 is on Tennessee. We're bordering on the other side behind me is Virginia, is North Carolina. Talking about the Virginia, Tennessee, North Carolina border. And, you know, this is a one shot. This is not combining pictures. This is like a 3-minute exposure with very sensitive film to show you the Milky Way. And we're going in the Milky Way real quick, about right in here. In Sagittarius, in this area here, is what we're looking at on our back screen here. So in my backyard, sorry about the palm trees, folks, but you can't get rid of them down here. is a fish hook called Scorpio. And we'll talk more about Scorpio in a future Stay Star Curious. But I see 3 stars in a row in the upper right, and in the middle is a bright star with 2 stars on either side, and the hook goes on the bottom. And Marty Winkle goes, "What? All I see are trees and clouds." It's fun to take. This is like a 30-second exposure on a tripod, because this is how you connect the dots, and that is Scorpio, the scorpion. And in the middle, right here, is Antares, a bright first magnitude star, very red. The claws of the scorpion emanate from out here, all right, and curve around. And here is the fish hook of the scorpion going down there. So, but very typical, what you're going to see in your backyard is you're not going to see things that distinct. Now you go out to the campfire in Kissimmee, is pretty dark. You get away to another dark sky side. These clouds are being illuminated from sky from Melbourne, south of where I live. Melbourne, Florida, not Melbourne, Australia, Cliff Watson, who's down in Pomona, Australia. All right, let's go this way. There you see the fish hook there. So we'll talk about that later. Well, also from my backyard, I've got the stars of Sagittarius. The fish hook is to the left, to the right side, and left is Sagittarius. And there is Sagittarius. He's Archer. He's arching that way. Okay. It looks like a teapot, though. Very distinct teapot when you outline it like that. You see a fuzzy globular cluster there. You see steam coming off of it there. That's the Milky Way. And up in there, in that high area, right over here, is my background. All right. The Lagoon Nebula, because it looks like a lagoon, and the Trifid Nebula, because it was 3 parts. So this is where a gigantic telescope on the top of a Chilean mountain was looking just last week, as it's finished and given what we call first light. So let's go to my full screen here. Let's go forward there and look at all of the celestial wonders that you can see from your backyard. And that Sea Star I was telling you about, telescope that doesn't even have an eyepiece but sends things to your smart tablet, SEESTAR. There's the Trifid Nebula, M20, and the Lagoon Nebula, M8, 8th and 20th object cataloged in Messier's catalog. Why would he not have one be ahead of the other, behind the other? I don't know. Maybe he had a cloudy night that clouded up after he did the Lagoon Nebula. He didn't go back out and see it until a month later. There you've got globular clusters that are 800 light years away on the bottom. There's another globular cluster 10,000 light years away. There's a galaxy, a nebula, and the Lagoon and Trifid Nebula. So let's look at the Lagoon and Trifid Nebulas from one of my friends, Mark Poole, in his Brevard Astronomical Society. Mark only got into astronomy about 8 years ago, maybe even less. And he just got into astrophotography quickly. And he bought a good $5,000 telescope and a $2,000 to $5,000 camera that just specializes in astrophotography. And he started getting eat up with these basically snapshots from his backyard. You're looking 5,000 light years away from Earth are these 2 sources of stars being born in the Lagoon Nebula and the Trifid Nebula up there. Isn't that gorgeous? It certainly is. And he did this by taking a series of 1 or 2 minute exposures, but dozens of them, maybe even over different nights. And then in a computer, they're combined together to make one beautiful image. And you spend hours at the computer, and the telescope can be run automatically in today's high-tech world. Well, in today's high-tech world is one of the newest telescopes, a $1 billion investment called the Rubin telescope at Sierra Tololo. Sierra Tololo is in the Andes Mountains of Chile, and it is uh, this cutting edge of telescopes. Okay, now the old Palomar telescope, 200 inches in Los Angeles, they update it by putting electronic cameras and so forth on it instead of film. This is designed to just take photographs only at a high tech, and it's a series of mirrors combined that I don't know how big it is. It's got to be over 200 inches, but it might be 8 or 9 high tech mirrors that that they can correct for the scintillation of light coming through the Earth's atmosphere and straighten that out and all other kinds of things. Now, this is a time exposure where a camera was left open for maybe, it looks like about 2 hours to get all the deep sky stars up there, and look at that. Or you could do this in Photoshop also. But this telescope looked at the Lagoon Nebula and the Trifid Nebula, and here's what it came up with. Oh my gosh. This is the first light out of this Rubin, after a famous astronomer, telescope. And once again, let's look at what my buddy from his backyard. This is jaw-dropping. It would be the front of covers of every astronomy magazine 20 years ago. But now, literally, hundreds of amateur astronomers have this similar picture in their library of my brag book. It's like having a birding list. You want to see this one bird to complete your lifetime list, or it's a hard bird to see. You may even come down to Florida to see a bird that you can't see up in Michigan or New England or wherever. Let me refresh myself. Again, this telescope made this look like this as one of its first light pictures. And what we're seeing here are stars being born, baby. Those are fresh stars over less than 1 million years old that come out of this cloud of gas, hydrogen that stretches from us to probably the nearest star to us, Alpha Centauri. It could be 8 light years across. I don't know. And that would get us to the brightest star, Sirius. But that's what's going on here. The rest of it is clouds that are illuminated by nearby stars up in Sierra Tololo. An amazing image that looks like this in your backyard. And like that, a 1 minute exposure, you can just barely see them there. The arrow's pointing to the Lagoon Nebula. You can see the light of it in the Trifid. And of course, the Hubble and Webb telescope have taken their own kind of pictures like this, but this is still up there with the quality of the Webb and the Hubble. But the Hubble and the Webb can only devote maybe a half an hour, maybe an hour a year to look at this. There are so many requests for things to look at on those telescopes that you have to write a paper, it be reviewed, and then it be chosen, and then put in the time frame, and then you get an hour's time to do your experiment or get your data harvested, then move on to the next guy. And this is a 24-hour, 7 days a week for the Hubble and the Webb telescope completely being utilized. So this is sort of a one-shot deal. This might not be revisited like this by the Webb or the Hubble, but 3 or 4 times every few years, whereas at Sierra Tololo, they can keep the whole night viewing of this night after night after night and see any subtle changes in things going on. So hope you've enjoyed a little bit of backyard astronomy. Let's get one more from Sierra Tololo's new Rubens Observatory. This is another jaw-breaking image. Every image you see here is a galaxy. Not stars, but galaxies. This is called Stephan's Quintet, something backyard astronomers like to check off another list of the Herschel 500. And this is an incredible view of 2 pinwheel galaxy. These are like what our Milky Way galaxy looks like, folks. The 2 galaxies right there in the middle. We think that our galaxies look like these right here. Amazing. A little barred in the middle. This one's probably more like us, and this one's more like Andromeda. Amazing. These are three galaxies colliding together, yes, interacting with each other over millions of years. These are the other stars of Stephen's quintet, they call it, named after a guy named Stephen that saw five galaxies together and photographed them in his telescope and said, hey, nobody's given those a nickname. Everybody's been finding them, so I'm going to call them Stephen's quintet. Just outstanding there to see that. And those are not stars, those are galaxies, Marty. Each and every one of them in our universe, each of them thriving with hundreds of billions of stars or more. And those stars, the closest ones to us, have 2 or 3 planets going around them. So maybe there's trillions of planets, and who knows what kind of life is lurking among this image from the Rubens Observatory. Well, folks, leave you all as I'm reading off your wonderful names there that remember Jubilee and Callie, Chris Callie. We live on a planet. Mark Usiak, Elena Edkahara, Robert Law, and Tom Usiak. We are all Earthlings, okay? And as Steve Jokums, Dave Stangy, Terry Vett Green, Mitch Rothman, Jim McDade, Carlton Bailey, Cliff Watson, and Doug Forrest all know the only border that matters is the thin blue line. And thank you, Mark Warborowitz. Mark Warobitz. I think I know I've stargazed with you, I believe, Mark. Hadn't seen you in a long time, but this is what it's all about. And that thin blue line, yeah, it degrades our images a little bit, but when we pollute it, it not only degrades the images of astronomers are seeking off this planet, but it threatens our own survival. So that is what we need to thank. Also, that we are crewmates, not passengers on this planet Earth. So take care of our planet, take care of each other, and take care of your mind. Go out in your backyard with your binoculars. Maybe you got a good little telescope. Maybe you don't. If you don't even have binoculars, buy you a good pair, but get that star map out and get a little star shine on your mind and in your brain to think about and conjure a little bit about what we know so little about, but you can learn so much about here on Stay Curious. So thank you for letting me take you to your backyard, Marty. I'm going to go look for those globular clusters in Sagittarius. Until tomorrow, when we pick up some space history like only we can do it together on Stay Curious. I'm Mark Marquette saying, can't wait to see you under the stars to bridge the space between us. And, oh, there goes a meteor.